Welcome to the Christy Jones Show, your go-to space for thriving in business and life. I'm Christy, and after decades in the multifamily housing industry, a business owner, and now speaker and coach, I help ambitious professionals step into bold leadership, ditch the self-doubt, and have more of what they want, more success and more fulfillment. If you're ready to flourish and thrive, you are in the right place, my friend. Hey, my friend, welcome back to the podcast. So glad we're hanging out today. I'm really excited to jump into these two things I want to share with you today when it comes to leadership. The power of the pause and the power of listening. We're going to get all into it. Really excited to jump into this today. Probably going to be a shorter episode, but I want to really give you something that you can put in your toolkit. You know, I'm all about that. We got to stock up our toolkit for business, for life. This podcast is all about thriving in business and life. And so every time I sit here behind the mic, that's exactly what I want to be giving you. Exactly what I want to be giving you. So let me ask you this question because I'm going to dive right into the first one. We're going to talk about the power of the pause. But have you ever been in a meeting where someone says something and it just kind of hits you sideways? It doesn't land quite like it just didn't land at all, at all. It's what you do in that moment that matters more than you think. It's, that moment that someone says something off in a meeting, maybe that moment then that your team looks at you on how to respond. That moment where you could react or you could lead. And today, I want to give you, again, two simple, powerful leadership shifts that are going to elevate how you show up in business and in life. And also enable you to model this for your team. So let's go right into the power of the pause. There's moments that define your style of leadership. And I believe that two of those are how you respond and also how well you listen. So I'm going to talk about how we respond, the power of the pause, and then also the power of you listening and how effective that is in building a team and really creating anything in your life, in business or life. So let's jump into the first one on the power of the pause. And I want to tell you a little story. I'm big on story time. I want to tell you a little story. This is something that happened about a year, probably within the last year. This isn't the only one, but this is just the most recent one that really was like, seriously, did this just happen? Did I just sit through that? One of those moments. So I want to use that as an example because when I'm telling this story, my guess is you're going to think oh my gosh, I have been in a very similar situation. I didn't know what to do. I responded in a way that I didn't want to respond that way. So it's not the last time it's going to happen. And just like for me, these type of moments where maybe someone says something, this could even be in a time when someone intentionally is saying something to make you feel bad, to make you, maybe it's in a group setting and they're trying to embarrass you or they're trying to belittle you or something like that. You can apply this to a lot of different scenarios, but I don't want you to think, oh, it's only happened to me once and we're one and done. I don't think that's the case. I mean, there's so many situations over the years that I can take this and apply this. And I mean, I learned this many years ago when I started understanding the power of the pause and I didn't have to respond just because something weird was said. I mean, that was powerful when I finally figured that out. So I'm going to tell you about something that happened in the last 12 months. It's pretty fresh on my mind. And tell you about the power of the pause and how that played into that story. So I'm on a Zoom call. It's a meeting. And I only know there's four men and myself. So I only know one of them that I've actually communicated with him, talked to him over the last 9 or 10 years through business. And so we're familiar with one another and everybody's in different states and in different locations. And, but I'm meeting the others for the first time on this Zoom. The Zoom meeting it's in relation to some apartment community an apartment community, just one that was the topic of the call. And we're owners of that. And I'm the manager of the LLC. So I'm on the call to, take care of the business we had to take care of. And so as we were going over the list of things, and the management company that manages it was going over some things. There was a time in the conversation where I had shared our long-term vision of where we would want to see the project go, and what I would basically lay out as our long-term plan. And that was met with, I think, some surprise. And at some point in the meeting, one of the gentlemen had proposed, and it was really odd how he slipped it in. It really, after the meeting was over, I realized that I think that was the goal all along going into the call by that person. But I did not know that in the heat of the moment. Anyways, it was proposed that, well, you could just sign over your ownership to us. And I literally probably no, I didn't scratch my head, but I'm scratching my head because, like, did I just hear what I thought I heard? And of course I'm thinking, what did he just say? And he says it, and I just sat there. And he says it again. And of course, and just to frame this up, it was not a buyout option. Generally, that's how something like that would go. It was just, you could just sign a piece of paper and sign over your percentage to us, which is half of it. I thought that was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of. I thought, what is this man saying? Like, why would he even say that? Why would he even offer that? That's like the weirdest thing I've ever heard. And those things, you've probably been in a situation where you've heard something like that and you're like, that's the stupidest idea I ever heard. Like, why would I just sign over something that I own to, why? Like that, anyways, if you've ever been in those situations, like, that's just so weird. And you're thinking those things. Well, that's where I'm going to talk about the power of the pause. So I wasn't sure I heard him correctly, and he repeated the offer, to which I didn't respond. I just sat and just had kind of nodded my head. I actually was taking down some notes to write down exactly what he had said because it just didn't make sense. To which then he says, well, what do you think of that? Did you hear what I said? And I said, I did. I did hear what you said. And then I just sat in a pause. I let there be silence in the meeting. And I think that, for one, in all the years of business, I have learned, and this is what I want to drop for you, that it is good to be very comfortable with silence. And you don't have to fill the awkward space. It's not needed to just be filled with chatter. And a lot of times I know that people feel uncomfortable, like I'm supposed to say something. I need to fill the empty space. The pause makes everyone a little like, oh, well, somebody needs to say something. And I just don't possess that quality. I have learned, and I believe, and I'm sharing this with you because I believe it's truly an asset to have in how you operate, is I am 100% very comfortable with silence and a pause. I sat in that moment. I didn't feel, I had personal thoughts about how ridiculous I thought his offer was, but I wanted some space in that conversation just to see how that landed with everybody. And I could tell by the body language of others on the call and as we sat in silence, because a lot of times when you allow the pause, you allow the speaker, the one that said the last words, you give them an opportunity to reflect on what they just said. And sometimes, I mean, we all goof up, right? Say, like, oh, that came out wrong. And so sometimes when it's done innocently, it's an opportunity that person might go, oh gosh, that sounded odd, or I didn't, let me restate that. Let me say that again. Now that's one thing that can happen. That did not happen in this scenario, but the power of the pause allows the speaker to sit with that for a moment. Um, but anyways, in that situation, I sat and then he said it again. And he says, well, so what do you think? And I said, your comment is noted. And I left it at that. To me, that was not a viable question. I did not think it made any sense at all. I thought it was an awkward um, thing to offer in that moment and to propose, and a ridiculous one at that. I think the fact that I did not have a response was the response. And I could tell by the other people in the meeting that everybody was they were very uncomfortable for a while. I was not uncomfortable because I didn't ask the lame question. Um, I just simply didn't feel the need to elaborate on something that was um, that was just so not appropriately, it just did not fit in the conversation. So, and that's not my responsibility. It's the responsibility of the person that made the statement. And so in that situation, I just sat, and then when he asked again, I just said, your comment's been noted, or um, your words have been noted. I made note of it here. And that was it. And eventually they went on to the next agenda item. I think that knowing that it's okay to pause, I think that that's important for you to know when you are in those situations. Um, the pause is not a weakness, it's actually leadership. And I believe in that moment, what ended up happening in that conversation is it led the conversation in a different direction. It led the meeting in a different direction. Um, I think it also allowed power of the pause often allows others an opportunity to reflect. And it also, just because, even if, let's say it's just a reasonable question, not like the example I just gave you that makes no sense whatsoever. Nobody's going to sign over for nothing ownership of an asset. I don't know a single person that would do that. Anyways, but let's say it's a reasonable question. And let's say that you find yourself in a conversation that you're just not, maybe you're not clear on how to answer it. You're not sure on your response. You need some time to think about it. Let's just say it's something like that. And you're just like, well, I don't really like, I don't know how to respond to that. I need some time. Having a pause, it's not a sign of weakness. It shows leadership. it basically is you taking control of the moment. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'll get back to you. I need some time to, weigh my options. I'd like to delve into that further. Anything. But just because someone asks a question, you don't have to give an answer immediately. And I feel that people that are most comfortable with the power of the pause, and when I say the power of the pause, meaning just sitting in silence, not feeling that need to over answer, over explain, over talk. And a lot of times that's just nervous energy when people do that. But if you can really like relax into the power of the pause when it is appropriate, that is you creating and really taking control of the moment instead of, and a lot of times in like the story I'm telling, that was, let me just cut to the chase. That example, because you'd have to be in that entire meeting to know the tone. There were so many things within that meeting that the attempt was not um, not in good spirit. So being able to pause and not respond basically takes all the energy away from the person that's trying to drive the train, maybe in not so good of a direction. So basically, you just don't take the bait. You control the moment. And that comes from within. So being okay with the power of the pause. You get to keep your composure. Let's say someone says something in a meeting and it doesn't land and it's off base. I've had plenty of those situations as well. You don't need to react emotionally. You get your composure. If you are going to respond, and after taking a pause is just fine, just sitting there, taking a breath or two. And when you are going to respond, respond with intention. Do not respond with emotion. Respond with intention. It allows you to be more clear and more concise. And I also encourage you, if you find yourself in that situation, that I think a lot of times people get very, um, they get emotional or they get just all caught up in it because they're taking things personally. And maybe they meant it personal. I don't know. But what I want you to kind of put some distance between you and maybe what was said, that it's really a reflection on them, that the fact that they said what they said has nothing to do with you. And only if you allow it to enter inside of your, I always have like this, I always envision those things with like, my husband used to talk about this, about wearing a raincoat when you go to work. You put that raincoat on, all kinds of things happen throughout the day, and it just kind of bounces off of you. And then at the end of the day, you take the raincoat off, you go home, and you can like absorb back into your, home life. And that metaphor always really stuck with me, and I've used that a lot throughout my life. But really getting your composure in those moments, not responding and reacting in an emotional way, and instead choosing your response intentionally. When you allow, if you find yourself in a moment like that, when you allow discomfort to sit, hang in the silence, when you allow that, the discomfort sits where it belongs. And it belongs to, if it's words that are said, something in a meeting that was said or said to you, or however it is, that's coming from the person that it came out of their mouth. Okay. So that's where you have to allow the discomfort to sit where it belongs. I can't tell you how many times I have been in boardrooms, in meetings, in group settings, and something like that has happened. I've seen people jump to, yeah, they'll jump in and then they feel the silence and then all this. And I've also seen the opposite. Um, when I'm so grateful I learned this early on in my career because when I would be in a situation like that, I understood that I'm going to let that statement just kind of, I just had a visual. It's going to hang out right here above the boardroom table. And it's just kind of hanging out right now. And I know that they're wanting me to jump on it, but I'm just going to let it simmer. And what's interesting when you allow the discomfort to sit where it belongs, that if there are other people in the room, that they see that as well. And the person that created the discomfort, it's now their thing to resolve. It is not yours. So I am so glad I learned that early on. I really encourage you to not be uncomfortable with the pause. And even if it's nothing confrontational, you just need a minute to just collect your thoughts. If you're asked a tough question, or it's something, a weighted question, you don't have to like answer it in 2 seconds flat. It's okay to pause, to collect your thoughts, and then to deliver your answer. So consider that the next time you find yourself either in an uncomfortable situation or with a important question or something that really you have to be very thoughtful, requires your thoughtfulness and insight on how you answer that. So be very comfortable with the power of the pause. Strong leaders do not rush to fill the silence. Strong leaders use silence on their behalf. If how you respond in the moment defines your leadership, know that if, and I do think that that's very true, also know that how you listen defines the culture that you create, the type of culture that you create as a leader. So let's talk about power of listening. The power of listening is one of the most impactful things that I've ever learned. And it's like the power of listen, like we all know we're supposed to listen. We grow up being told to listen. Some of us are better listeners than others in those growing up years. But as a leader in any capacity, as a parent, as a leader in business, as a leader in your home, you have to have the ability to listen. You have to be able to listen and understand people. It's not, leadership isn't just this like complicated strategy stuff. It's understanding the people that you are working with in any capacity, whatever that is. I learned quickly, but I also just, I don't know, I've always enjoyed working with people. So I'm a people person. So this wasn't like really, I couldn't say this was like out of my comfort zone, but I really enjoyed helping people get to where they wanted to go and and create the things that they wanted to create. And so in the years when I was starting out in the apartment business, and then it became a manager and like had responsibility where I was like, okay, like I was like, I want to know what's important to the people on my team. And I mean, not just like here at work. Well, yes, I want to know that, but I wanted to know more about them as a person. And I have to say, and I didn't learn this out of some, you know, at a teaching or a university or in a book. This was just like, this just made sense to me that if I'm going to take people and expect them to get on the boat with me to get something accomplished. I need to invest in them. I want to know about them. I want to know what fires them up. I want to know what's important to them. I want to know what they like, what they don't like, because I need to better understand things because I knew that I needed to be able to see things through their perspective. And we're not always going to, and not that we're seeing things the same way, but I needed to get a better understanding of maybe where they were coming from, how they were seeing things. So I quickly learned that there's going to be different ways that I would set up opportunities to listen. One of those ways, let me tell you a couple of my processes that I used to do, is I came up with, and they were really lame in the beginning. I'm going to be real honest. They got much better as the years went by, but almost like a questionnaire. Like I started out just with note cards, just writing questions down. And I would give them to the people on my team, which was really small to begin. It was a few people. But as my team grew and I had 20 some odd apartment communities and you know, uh, teams spread out everywhere, it became even more important to better understand them. But I got a little more sophisticated in how I gathered my information. But basically, like a questionnaire and questions that I would ask them that I wanted to know about them. And it was everything from maybe what they loved most about what they did during the course of the week, the things that they didn't like that was involved in their job. So there was a lot of things that pertain to the work they do. What's something that I remember one of the questions was what is something in our business that you're really curious about that you haven't had the chance to learn yet? And then I also wanted to know what they didn't like, and then what they did like, and then I would branch out and ask, what are like three things that you want me to know about you outside of work? And I wanted to hear about like what was of interest to them and their hobbies, their kids, their pets, their whatever. And it kind of created that connection to where then I would follow up. So I would do these questionnaires and these little note cards and things like that. And then it allowed me to set up one-on-ones. So as my size of my team grew, and I carried this on to when I later founded two companies that you're dealing with a lot more employees and a lot more people. But I wanted to then have an opportunity to sit down with them like one-on-one. So it might, was sometimes it might be going to lunch, sometimes it might be meeting them up, going by their property and walking property with them. It might be sitting in their office. Sometimes I would just pull up and say, get in the car, we're going to go to Sonic and we're going to go get a snack or a Coke or whatever. I loved Dr. Pepper back in those days, by the way. Loved Dr. Pepper. Still love Dr. Pepper. I just don't have it as much. And so it's just very, very like easy ways to where I could meet them where they were. I really looked at it to listen to them. I didn't need them to meet me where I was at. I wanted to meet them where they were at. So I wanted to take a lot of the barriers away. So that's why it had to be like, it wasn't stiff and like we're having this one-on-one sit down conversation to follow up on the questions and the note cards. And it wasn't like that. It was very conversational. It was take all the barriers out. Like I want to get to know you. Like I'm genuinely like I want to hear from you. I want to like, and then you want to know like what's on your mind? What are your big concerns right now? Maybe there's something really big going on in their life. Not that it's your job to go in and fix any of that, but it helps you better understand the people on your team. So I found, and I always looked for ways to do more listening. So I would create these opportunities and these moments to get to know the people on the team. A few things I hope you take away from that is to understand that people want to be seen. They want to be understood. You cannot lead people that you don't truly understand. You have to develop the ability to see things through their perspective. Again, doesn't mean that you are in agreement on everything, But to lead others, you have to know more about them and what's important to them. It can't just be all about your agenda, the company's agenda, the goals, the this. At some point, there has to be like this human level to truly lead people. I remember, a lot of times people, when as I'd get to know them and what was important to them, yeah, there would be things that I would look for of what could I do for this person so that they grow here at the company. So they have certain goals that they're wanting to meet. Maybe they have a certain accreditation they're wanting to get, or a class that they're wanting to take, or those are pretty, I always felt like those were easy to identify. But every once in a while, you would then learn maybe they're with their kids. And I remember one of the women on my team, her daughter had gone to made cheerleader at her junior high. And she was a single mom and so sole provider, and she had two daughters. And so they had to go to cheer camp, and then to go to cheer camp, it had to, it cost whatever it cost. I don't remember. It was a lot, but it was like $500 a person type of thing. Anyways, so I had just picked up that was something coming up for the summer. And I mean, she didn't really go into it as a problem. I had just kind of picked up that was coming up, and I didn't know how much it cost at that point. But I was like, I could see that was a really important to the mother and also her daughter. So that really opened up an opportunity for me to offer. And I mean, I owned my own business at that point, so I could take the liberty to make that decision. But I circled back to her and said that I, wanted to sponsor, we would take care of her daughter's expenses to go to cheer camp, and to take that like off her mental load so she didn't have to think about that. And it's those little things that can you plug into identifying what is important to the people on your team. How can you help them get to where they want to get? Because they're helping you build, create, do the things that you're doing there at the company. So, how is it that you can help them also, not only in the workplace, but maybe there's some things outside of there that you can make an impact in their life? So, people want to be seen and they want to be understood, and you can't lead people that you don't understand. And alignment creates better performance. Alignment creates better performance. If you can support your team beyond work, that's even that much more powerful. I realize that can't be done in every setting, but it doesn't have to just be money. Like, it might just be showing up at someone's outside event and they're a key player on your team, and you show up to something that they're a part of that's on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, you're building loyalty, you're building performance for your team. When people feel understood, they show up differently. When they feel understood, they will show up differently for you and for your team. I know that these are very simple and seem very practical, but don't make any mistakes that just because it's simple, it's not important. Pausing in the moment, very important. Pausing in a conversation, pausing in a meeting, anytime you feel the need for a pause, learn how to be very comfortable with that. Listen to your people. Listen to the people on your team. You don't have to agree, but you have to be able to listen. And there are nuggets of wisdom in all the bits and pieces of information that you listen to. I hope you're walking away today understanding that to refine yourself as a better business person, as a better leader, that some of these things are really practical and simple. Understanding the power of the pause, understanding the power of being a good listener. But every single day, I hear from people that that isn't what's being practiced. And so, yes, it's simple, but not everyone is doing it. And often they just don't understand the importance of it. So, if this hit for you, take one of these that I've shared today and apply it in your week ahead. Leadership is not built in just these big, ostentatious, big moments. Leadership is built on how you handle the very small moments. Send this to a friend that you know would enjoy this as well. Share it on your social media. Tag me, all the things. Until next time, my friend, flourish and thrive. And I look forward to seeing you right here, same place, same time. Take care. Friend, thanks for tuning into the podcast today. Take a moment and share this episode with that one or two people that you thought of as you were listening to today's episode. And I would love your quick review. It would mean the world to me for you to drop a review here on the podcast. And don't forget to follow and like the show so you never miss a beat on how to thrive in business and life.